Titleist just released the TSR2, TSR3, and TSR4 drivers. In this video, I'm gonna hit all of them, give you my overall feedback, and if you're in the market for one of these drivers, hopefully this video helps you out. Let's go. So if any of you are new to the channel, my name is Brandon. I do a ton of club reviews just like this. If you've been following the channel for a while, you saw Titleist fit me into the Titleist TSR3 at a 10-degree head. Since playing around with it and talking to a lot of people in the Titleist community, they said I have to hit the 9. So in this video, I'm gonna hit all the TSR2, TSR3, and TSR4 in a 9-degree head. All of the settings are gonna be on neutral. If you're interested in seeing me get fit by Titleist, I'll put a link in the description of the video so you can see my entire fitting by Titleist. The shaft I'm gonna use for all these tests is the Hazardous Black. It is a low spin shaft and it's a 6.5 flex, so extra stiff. During my Titleist fitting, this is the shaft that I got fit into. It is a stock option. So potentially if any of you are gonna hit the Titleist TSR, this is a shaft that you could be fit into, and it's a really good stock shaft. If you wanted to buy one of these just from a retail store, they're about 400 bucks. Okay guys, the first driver that I'm gonna hit is the Titleist TSR2. This is supposed to be their most forgiving head. So from the 2 to the 4, this should hopefully be easiest to hit. I'm really excited to see the dispersion, what the numbers look like. What I'm gonna do for this comparison is I'm gonna get a good sample size of about 10 drives from each driver. From there, I'm gonna delete the best and the worst hits so we can find a really good baseline for how these drivers are performing. Visually, I think that the TSR lineup is probably some of the sleekest, sexiest drivers of 2022. Titleist is very traditional in a sense, so a lot of drivers right now have carbon tops, not the TSR lineup. It has a shiny kind of gloss black on the crown. On the sole, it's very sleek, it's very minimal, and I love this silver line going from the face to the back of the driver. The TSR2 does not have any movable weights that you can move to a dry or fade bias. If you want to, you can change it based on the hosel setting. The only weights that you can change are, there's weights in the back of this driver that are removable. For all of these drivers, the only setting that I changed from standard are these weights. I put them on a -2 weight. So I'm gonna get my sample size of these TSR2 drives. Let's see how it sounds, feels, and obviously how far they go. So out of the gate, that first swing felt awesome. If I could hit a 5-foot draw off the line every time, 300 carry, 326 total, like sign me up. I'll let you guys know too, to get all this data, we're using a TrackMan. The ball is a Pro V1 RCT ball, and where I'm filming is in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Elevation is about 3,400 feet. That's how we get all of our data, so let's see how this thing keeps going. So a driver that I owned in the past was going back to the 915 head, and it definitely looks upgraded from them, obviously. I think if anyone is upgrading, they're probably looking at the TS line, and looking at this TSR2 versus the TS2 is like night and day comparison. This thing looks so good. Titleists have always sound amazing. It has an awesome ping or a thwack right off of the face. It's not muted by any means. It's not hard. I would say it's a soft, solid ping. Soft, solid ping, is that an oxymoron? Soft, solid? So the TSR2 is really geared towards players that want the most forgiveness up and down the face. Maybe if you're kind of a mid to high handicapper and you don't consistently hit the center of the face, this might be a pretty good driver for you. What I found in my fitting with Titleist is it was pretty spinny. So far looking at the spin I'm getting is around that 3,000 RPM, which is definitely too high for me. For someone like me with a faster club head speed, faster ball speed, that spin is gonna eat me up. But if you're someone that doesn't swing it as fast, spin is actually gonna help you hit the ball further. So we'll get a couple more samples and then I'll compare it to the other drivers. The driver that I'm most excited to hit is that TSR4 because I didn't have it in my fitting. That's supposed to be the lowest spin head, so potentially I could get the best results based on my game with the TSR4. You'll have to stick around to the end of the video to see how that TSR4 performs. So if I haven't got to know any of you guys in the comments yet, my name is Brandon. I'm trying to be a full-time content creator. I play to about a scratch and I still have a full-time job and I'd way rather make content for you guys. If you want to help out the channel, smash subscribe. You can turn on post notifications so you can see all my future reviews. Thanks guys. Okay, there's a good collection of hits. I'm gonna take a look at the data and delete my best and worst hit. Okay, let's go into the shot list. Not the best dispersion. Couple misses for sure. The guys that are like, oh yeah, he's a scratch golfer, I'm sure. That's not a scratch golfer. So that's probably my worst, we'll delete that. Okay, before I delete my best hit, I'll just show you the best that I got was a 313 carry with a 335 total. My smash factor was still pretty decent at 148. My spin rate again was high. So I'm thinking with the TSR3 and the TSR4, with the spin coming down, that should help improve my carry and my total distance, but I guess we'll have to find out. So I gotta delete this guy, which was my best. Okay guys, here's a good sample size of the TSR2. So my spin actually was not too bad based on my average. 2600 is actually not terrible at all. So I would consider this head so far relatively low spinning. We'll have to see how the TSR3 and 4 compare. Averaging 300 carry, averaging 331 total. Based on where I live in Calgary, those are pretty much my average numbers. Okay, let's take a look at the dispersion. So I found the fairway with some, but I probably found a backyard or two with the others. This is not the best dispersion that I had, especially like this one over here. I'm probably chipping out from under a tree. This far one over to the far right, I'm probably taking a drop off the cart path. So overall, not my best collection of hits, but I'm excited to see what I can get out of the TSR3. So why don't we tee that up? Okay guys, we're moving on to the TSR3, and this is the driver that I'm most familiar with. I did my entire fitting with Titleist. I also took it out on the course. There's a full video of me playing with this on the course and giving you my feedback of the course, but now I'm kind of in control on the TrackMan and the settings. There are some slight differences on the TSR3 head. The biggest thing that it has a removable track weight system. This is gonna help you put a weight on the draw or fade bias. And again, the weight that I put in here is the -2 weight. If you go for a full fitting, a fitter will be able to put all the different weights in to find a specific driver for you. Based on what Titleist fit for me, I kind of decided to Frankenstein it and change it up on my own settings just to get a baseline to compare versus the other drivers. That's why I put everything kind of on neutral. If I was to put these drivers side by side, the TSR3 is just slightly smaller. I'd say we're getting into a more player's driver. So this would be for the mid to low handicapper that has a fairly consistent ball striking ability. This should be a lower spinning head than the TSR2, and I guess we'll find out if it's less forgiving. So I'm interested to see what my hits look like. The first hit that I had was definitely not down the line, but it felt really good, and my spin is already way down. 1900 spin is a pretty huge start. 312 carry, 344 total. So like that spin that I talked about earlier is definitely gonna help get more distance out of this head. Toey again. Well, I'm consistent. 340 yard cut though, how are you? That felt hammered. That felt large. This driver definitely feels like it's built for speed. With the TSR2, I just didn't feel like I could generate as much speed as the TSR3. When I get to my loading point in my backswing, coming through the ball feels effortless. Pretty good sample size. We got some really big bombs out there, and I'm anticipating that to have been further than the TSR2, but let's find out. Okay, let's take a look at the TSR3. Sound-wise, the two of them sound almost identical, and they sound very good. If I was to pick the driver that sounded best in 2022, I'd probably say it's the TSR lineup. Okay, let's look at these hits. Here's all the dispersion, not as tight as a PGA Tour player, obviously, but I guess that's why I have a full-time job. Let's take a look at my worst. Probably this 298 big sling and hook. These first three that I hit were all fade bias, right? That's pretty darn consistent, those three shot shapes. I really tried to turn one over and I just got snappy, so I'm gonna delete this one. Let's take a look at my best hit. 316 cut, 340 total, 313, 341 total, 342 total. Holy smokes, like look at those entry swings out of the gate. How do I pick my best? There was a draw that I hit pretty late. This is probably my best, 347 total. Yeah, that draw. Draw will typically go further than a cut. I'm gonna delete this, but like look at those numbers. 2200 spin, which is like perfect, super ideal. Again, 317 total, 348, and a 149 smash factor. That's about as good as I can hit it, so unfortunately, I gotta delete it. Here's my sample size of the TSR3. So as I anticipated, the spin came way down. Spin is coming in at 2395, TSR2, 2652. So right there, I knew that was gonna happen with a low spin head, right? Let's look at the carry. I was averaging 300 carry with the TSR2. and I'm 312 carry. I wanna let you guys know too that I was very warm coming into this session. I didn't just start hitting the TSR2 cold. I hit probably 40 drivers to warm up on top of my normal warm up, so like I'm already sweating. So I didn't hit the TSR2 cold at all. This is purely just club. As I mentioned, I thought I could swing it faster. So there is a 1 mile an hour difference in the TSR3 from the TSR2. But the numbers were really good and it feels really good. This is it's almost one of the best drivers of the year. I did another video where I put the TSR3 up against the Cobra LTDx LS, which won my driver bracket of 2022. TSR3 wasn't even in the bracket because it wasn't out yet. The two were so close. So if you're interested to see how it stacks up against my best driver pick, you'll have to take a look at the link right up here. Okay guys, let's take a look at the dispersion, see if I hit any houses. Look at that tighter line. That's not even close, right? So again, that's a lot to do with spin. I did hit some in the water, which whatever. If it's a par 5, I'm dropping 3, I can probably hit the green in 2. Okay, in all seriousness, those were those cuts, so I must have been playing for that extra cart path bounce. Only hit a couple of, well really, I only hit 1 in the fairway, but that dispersion is pretty awesome. Let's look at the dispersion TSR2. See how big that oval is versus this one here? Like basically every hit I had. So basically every hit I had went approximately the exact same distance, and that's pretty cool. That's pretty good. Well, that's really cool. Okay guys, I am so excited to finally hit the TSR4 head. We have such a good baseline from the TSR2 and then the TSR3. Let's see if this TSR4 can outperform the TSR3. I'm so excited to hit this. Okay, what's different about this head is that it has 2 movable weights. Now you can't put it on a draw or fade bias with these weights on the sole, but one is lighter, one is heavier. So what we did for this first test is we put the heavy weight at the back and the light weight at the front behind the face. If I wanted, I could switch them. Visually, it is a smaller driver. This is 430 cc's versus the 460 of the TSR3 and 2. Automatically, it looks smaller. So smaller head, smaller sweet spot. It's interesting, even though this driver is smaller, it feels heavier in my hands. This driver is geared to a really good player, someone that is extremely consistent with their ball striking. On some days, I like to consider myself one of those players, but certainly some days I am not one of those players. So we'll find out what type of session I have with this today, but I'm nervous to hit this because I think that the miss hits are gonna be the most drastic of everything that I've hit so far. Okay, incredible first hit with the TSR4. Based on how it felt, I did not think I was gonna get those results. This feels very heavy. It's more muted than the TSR3 and 2, where those felt like butter off the face. That felt pretty hard. It definitely sounds harder than the TSR2 and TSR3. See how far right this one goes. Not awful. Right by the cart path. Based on my hits so far, this TSR4 does not sound nearly as good as the TSR2 or 3, and it doesn't feel as good. It feels a lot harder behind the face, where I like the softness of the TSR3 and 2, so I would have to get used to hitting this on the course, but it definitely doesn't feel as good as the TSR3. I want to swap these weights from the heavy at the back to the front just to see if that changes anything in the feel and sound. Okay, I swapped the weights around, so I now put the heavy weight behind the face and the lighter weight at the back of the driver. Already I feel a difference in just holding it. I feel like I was fighting the weight because it was so heavy at the back of the driver. When I started the downswing, I felt like I really had to swing at it. So it'll be interesting to see how these couple hits feel and sound compared to the first half. I think I caught that one low on the face, or it felt like, but it says my launch angle was still 10. It's just not, it's very hard. Hard is the only way I can describe it. It's pulled, I think. I believe when I was talking to the Titleist fitters, they said that the majority of the tour players are actually playing the TSR3 head, so that's interesting. Whew. Okay guys, another good sample size. Let's take a look at the numbers. Okay, there is all of my hits with the TSR4. Again, I'm not painting any lines by any means. We have to delete my best and the worst. The worst, probably in here, big kind of pull hook, but look at that spin. I still kind of pull hooked it and it's only 2200 spin. That's pretty crazy. And my smash factor was up there.
Yeah.
That was more of just a club path thing, I would say, right?
Yeah.
Like just kind of a smother. But if that's your miss hit, still 291, 330 total, that's pretty large. I would consider that to be my worst hit on here. Definitely. So we'll delete that. TSR4 is hard to hit.
It is hard to hit.
Do you find that with the fittings that you do?
I rarely give anybody 4.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Who would you give a 4 to?
Some like really good plus index if they ask for it.
Oh, interesting.
It's like a different club altogether. Weird.
Interesting. Well, I'm glad we had the same results as the stuff that you fit with.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, so it's interesting to hear from one of the head fitters at Modern Golf that even he rarely gives a TSR4 to anyone. He mentioned just a couple like college plus golfers wanted to try it, and they still got fitted in the TSR3. So as we dive into the results, it's kind of what I was thinking in my head, but that's interesting just to hear a professional fitter say what I was thinking. We still have to delete my best hit. What was my best hit with this guy? That first one was freaking awesome. 313, just right of my line, 343 total. Did anything come even close to that? 340, 335, 339, 340. So that one, so it's either my first or last hit. That one has 313 carry, so I gotta delete that one. But that's a pretty big bomb. So that's what the driver is capable of. Let's see how my averages look after I delete that. Okay, here's my averages. The spin again was way down, 2300 spin. How does that compare to the TSR3? 2395, 2363. So it is still lower spin. Again, that's based on the averages. So it's good to know that the TSR4 is certainly the lowest spinning head. So if you're someone who wants next to no spin, the TSR4 could be a driver for you. Let's look at carry and total. TSR4, 304 carry. TSR3, 312 carry. Interesting. Average total on the TSR4 is 337 when the TSR3 was 341. One of the big key factors is the launch angle. So I was launching the TSR3 the highest, so averaging 11 degrees, where the 4 was 10 degrees and the 2 was even lower at 9.7. So I was hoping it was gonna keep getting better and better and better. But based on how I was swinging and the results that I got, I'm thinking so far it's a no-brainer that's why I got fit into the TSR3.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I'm glad I was able to hit the TSR4. Let's look at the dispersion. Very similar dispersion, super tight dispersion. And again, I credit that to low spin. Let's look at that versus the TSR3. TSR3, I would say, was tighter, right? If you look at the depth of this oval, the TSR3 is all on the same line, where the TSR4, there's a little bit more of a gap, but still overall fairly good dispersion. And we know that my worst dispersion was with that TSR2 head, just based on how spinny it was. Super, super, super cool. I'd say based on the results that we have, we made the right decision in putting the TSR3 up against the Cobra.
Yeah, and I think with the TSR3 that a couple slight tweaks. Like look at that. If you put that,
it could get even better.
You would. I think you would have beat the Cobra.
Yeah.
With a couple tweaks.
So what's really cool about these Titleist drivers that if you do go for a professional fitting, all the settings I had minus the weight were on standard. So my fitter could even narrow my dispersion based on either a hosel setting or a different weight setting. So I think this driver can even improve. Okay guys, that wraps up my test of the Titleist TSR Driver Lineup. All three of them were awesome. Like, are we expecting anything else? It's Titleist. Based on my results, the Titleist TSR3 is still the best driver for me. If you're someone looking for more forgiveness, definitely try out the TSR2. I'd be interested to hear of your experience. If you do hit it, just comment below. I'd love to hear from you guys. And if you're one of the less than 1% of college golfers, +3 golfers watching this video, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the TSR4. Thanks again for watching this. We'll check in with you next time. See you guys.